but also the lily pads provide good camouflage for the baby gators. And the mating season starts in about April and May. The males will go around making these deep, loud, guttural bellows. They're so deep that they'll cause the water droplets to bounce off their backs, just as they would off of a drum. And they do that for two reasons. One, to establish a territory with other males, but also to attract a female. And what gets me is, I don't know what female would be attracted to a guy that made noises like that. But anyway, after they've mated, the female will pick out a suitable nesting site along the edges here. She'll build a mound of peat and vegetation about 2 to 4 feet tall and 5 feet wide. And she'll lay a clutch of about 60 eggs, but anywhere from 30 to 80 eggs. And she'll cover the nest back up with more peat and vegetation. Then that's a pig frog there. And then the heat from the sun and the heat from the decaying vegetation in the nest is what incubates the eggs. So she doesn't have to sit on the nest or anything, but she does guard the nest. The average temperature of the egg during incubation is what determines the sex of the gator. The threshold is about 86 degrees, so the eggs with average temperature below 86 degrees will become a female gator, and then the eggs with average temperature above 86 degrees will become a male gator. So those will hatch about 9 weeks later in August and September. The babies will immediately start making a distress call, and that lets the mother know her babies are ready to come out of the nest. So she'll come dig them out and carry them in her mouth to the water. They'll feed on frogs, toads, insects, small snakes, and small fish until they get older. They'll grow about a foot a year till they're about 5 or 6 years old. And after that, it just depends on how much they get to eat. But before they even hatch, 90% of the nests are raided mainly by black bears. And other critters will eat the eggs as well, including raccoons, possums, skunks, wild hogs, things like that. But that first year after they've hatched is when they're the most vulnerable. Not only is that when they're the smallest, but it's so hard for a mother gator to keep up with 60 kids. And so anything and everything that's out here that eats meat will eat a baby gator. And that includes hawks, herons, egrets, cranes, vultures, coyotes, bobcats, raccoons, possums, snakes, river otters, black bears, large fish, and other gators. So you don't want to be a baby gator. But despite all those predators, there's about 1/5 or 20% of them that actually hatch that will make it to adulthood. So if a mother gator lays 60 eggs and they all hatch, then about 12 of them will make it to adulthood. All the grasses growing up around us here is all growing on peat, and it's the second stage of the peat process. We call it a battery at this stage, because in the Civil War and previous wars, soldiers could hide their ammunition deep in that tall grass, and they could float the whole thing down river to move from location to location. So at this stage, the grasses have completely covered the peat, and the trees are getting a little bit bigger, and they're starting to send roots down the floor of the swamp to anchor it there in that place. So it won't be able to float around much longer. The tall trees surrounding us here is the third and final stage. It's called a house, and that's because that's where the wildlife live. That's their house. So at that stage, the trees have completely sent the root down the floor of the swamp. It's all anchored and stationary there. So the peat that it started off on has probably since been burned away, especially since we just had that major fire last year. So that mud will be grown right up out of the water, just like what we saw up in Minnie's Run. Most recent to be struck by lightning. You can see where the lightning broke off the top of the tree, and the bolt went all the way to the water here. And this one didn't happen to catch fire, but these next two were also struck by lightning, and they did catch fire. The first one I think was put out by the pouring down rain, and the second one I think just burned itself out. Start to turn a drab brown color just before they start to fall in the water, contributing to the peak. And both of them can be seen straight ahead up here. And the one on the right there is the pond cypress. It's got real evergreen looking or needle-like looking leaflets, and likes to grow in areas with stagnant water, like in a pond or lake. That's the most prevalent species that we have. And then on the left there is the bog cypress. It's got real feathery or fern-like leaflets, and it likes to grow in areas with the current, like near a river or stream. And so we kind of have a mix of the two here, but we're a swamp, and then the headwaters for the two major rivers. So we're very lucky to get both species, because most places will only have one or the other.
Yeah, I see.
This one right there, see? Spanish moss produce tiny little flowers. And they're also not a parasite like a lot of people think. They don't have any roots. They're considered to be an epiphyte or an air plant, which means they get all the nutrients that they need from what's floating around in the air. They absorb all the water they need from rainwater through their porous scales on what we call their leaves. They're bromeliad, which means that they're a flowering monocot, and it puts them in the same family as the